Welcome back to Next Gen Console Watch, our show following everything going on with new gaming hardware, and this week, that includes Nintendo. I'm Daemon Hatfield. Joining me this week are Max Scoville, host of IGN's PlayStation podcast, Podcast Beyond.
Hey.
And from IGN's Xbox podcast, Podcast Unlocked, Stella Chung.
Hello, taking Ryan's place today.
Indeed, indeed. Always great to have you on the show. So there are reports of new Nintendo hardware reportedly coming in the second half of 2024. This report comes from VGC. Apparently this next-gen console can be used in portable mode, very similar to the Nintendo Switch, has an LCD screen as opposed to an OLED screen in order to keep costs down, and it will come apparently with a cartridge slot for physical games. So, Stella, I'll begin with you. Is this sounding like, do you expect this to be very similar to the Nintendo Switch, maybe just more powerful, a little bit bigger?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it's going to be used in portable mode definitely makes me feel a little bit hopeful about the fact that they would be following the Switch's model. I mean, the Switch has done such amazing things, and if they can do that on like almost 7-year-old console stuff, I'm definitely thinking they're bringing some of that to this next gen. So I definitely feel like it's going to be some form of the Switch, but maybe like improved upon, which would, I mean, they did that with like the previous consoles anyways, so yeah.
Yeah, Max, how about you?
So the big thing here is that the Switch, like I feel like previously Nintendo would always sort of have a handheld on the side and a console here, and so like they could get a little bit weird with one or both of those. But in this case, like this is their everything's riding on this, whatever it is. And also the Switch has such a massive install base that like if you've got that many people who are familiar with this device and they're, you know, they know what it is, they like it, just why mess with that? You know, don't upset the apple cart, don't reinvent the wheel. I mean, they have a history of getting a little bit wonky, you know, like sometimes that's the Wii and it pans out, and sometimes that's the Wii U and it doesn't. So I feel like in this case, it's just like, please just keep it simple. Just take the same thing and just make it able to play newer games. Just that's all we need, I think. Just I feel like if this is the equivalent of like the leap from the DS to the 3DS, like that, I'm okay with that.
Sure. Well, the question about backwards compatibility remains. That has not been answered yet. The Switch has such an incredibly large install base now. It's hard to imagine they would move on and not make it backwards compatible, at least to me, because I think that would just be a hard pill to swallow for so many people out there who already have a Switch. Stella, what do you think? Do you think any chance that the next Nintendo hardware is not backwards compatible?
That would be a huge mistake on their part. I think they would be really shooting themselves in the foot if they did that, especially since they were selling, they just sold so many copies of Tears of the Kingdom, and people might just have been holding off on buying that special new edition of the Switch, that special edition, just to save up for the new console that may or may not be coming out next year or getting announced next year. So I feel like that'd be a huge miss. I mean, it's just one of those things of like, yeah, the next Switch's platform or the next Nintendo platform can have a lot of good games that can be made for that, but is that really going to be enough to bring people back over? Because I mean, if I can't bring my Animal Crossing island over to this new console, I'm not going to buy it right away, because I'm going to be fine with this console that has housed all of my games over the last like 6 years. So.
Yeah, I think in my mind, both Sony and Microsoft did it the right way, transitioning to the current generation with PS5 and Xbox Series X. They're both backwards compatible. It's built into the UI of the PlayStation 5. When you download a game, it asks you if you're wanting to download the PS5 or the PS4 version. Xbox has smart delivery. So, Max, in your mind, how do you expect Nintendo to play the backwards compatibility card?
I feel like that's where they're going to do something weird. I really don't want them to. I feel like if they go, I think it's more likely going to be the Sony approach, where they sort of they identify like this is a Switch game, or this is a Super Switch game, or whatever. And knowing Nintendo, like maybe they'll make you like they'll have some additional bells and whistles for like the newer version, and if you want to like upgrade, they'll charge you for that. But I mean, they also, as far as like transferring your Animal Crossing save, I feel like there's going to be just some arcane, incredibly complicated process that is easy to screw up and just kill all your villagers. And it happens. I accidentally maybe deleted my wife's Breath of the Wild save.
Ooh,
yeah.
Wow.
Oh my God.
I'm hoping I get the kid.
And
on
you're
weekends,
still married.
Yeah. But I mean, that was the transferring from a Switch to a Switch Lite. Like, and it's they don't have the best track record for I guess transitions between generations. And I think at this point though, like they've got to be looking at the numbers of how many people purchase things digitally, and for all of the downsides of not having like video game archival stuff. They have a stable ecosystem of people who have bought into this and invested in this, and that's not to say that wasn't the case with the the Wii or the Wii U or the 3DS, but I feel like in this case it is very much this is the leading means in which people acquire games, and it would be a pretty reckless thing to do to just completely toss that out the window. So.
Yeah, and good games too, because remember when the Wii U was out and there were all of these really, really weird, like $1 games that came out for the Wii, and it was just really weird. But like on the Switch, there are actually really good games that people...
Switch does have bad games too, though.
It does, it's so good.
We have The Last of Us at home.
Yes, that one is so funny. But but still, I mean, there's still very good titles here that a lot of people have held on to and like specifically bought the Switch for. So it would be a really huge miss if they weren't bringing that over to you.
I mean, the one weird thing is like the Wii U did not sell well. That did not do well, and that was one advantage the Switch had, was it basically got to sort of do like, all right, once more with feeling, and that's why we got Super Smash Bros. Ultimate or like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is regularly one of the best-selling games of the month. Like it is consistently doing amazing numbers, and it just got like new DLC out of the blue. Like it's just they're taking care of that, and I think there's to understand that there's people who own this thing and maybe they don't want to buy it again. There's the whole thing about like buying GTA or Skyrim all over again. But in the instance that a lot of people who bought stuff on the Wii U, however many people there were of that, I think it was a different situation with that, and people were willing to buy the Switch version because there were considerably less of them who had already invested in it on a previous system.
Mm-hmm. What do we think about this detail, if it's true, if it has an LCD screen as opposed to an OLED screen? Would that be a disappointment to you, Stella?
Honestly, I don't really know the bigger differences between LCD and OLED right now. I do have the OLED Switch, and I've been pretty spoiled by it. Going back to the old Switch screen, it's a little rough. So I do feel like it's a slight downgrade from what I do know about it. It's not going to change whether or not I get the console, though.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Max, how about you?
Yeah, I think that would rely on other factors.
Yeah, I mean, Nintendo has they sell stuff. What is it for a not at a loss? Like they're cash rich. They're good at that, and one of the ways they do that is by keeping costs down. Like their stuff is regularly underpowered, but that doesn't seem to slow them down. Look at the Switch. It's it has games running at 720p. They're from like the 360 generation, and it's doing just fine. Like it's cool over there. As far as the screen goes, I think it's smart to not completely try to make this a high-end thing, because at the end of the day, like this is going to go to a lot of kids, and a lot of kids do not care if they have an OLED or LCD screen. That is a gamer problem, and those gamers can invest in a dock and an OLED TV if they need that, or they can hold out for the inevitable OLED upgrade that is probably going to come around once this one kind of makes its money back and has gotten early adopters on board. But yeah, I mean, like a lot of people don't even play handheld. Like that's a reality there. Like it's sort of a if there's an option to buy an OLED one, that would be cool for people who want a better looking handheld option. But like I feel like that's sort of just that's a non-issue that we're going to make an issue out of. But it's okay.
That's kind of what gamers do. Obviously, backwards compatibility is great for gamers, especially at the launch of a console when the game library is not that robust. You still can access previous games from the last generation. But what about the question of when it's time for developers to leave the last generation behind and focus on new-gen games and experiences? We finally got some of those this year with the Dead Space remake, Star Wars Jedi Survivor is another one, and then Final Fantasy 16. It's PS5 only for now. Those are both kind of two interesting cases. There was some reports that Square Enix was disappointed with the sales of Final Fantasy 16 because it's only on this one platform. That it's only sold, I think, less than half of what the PS4 has sold at this point, understandably so. But then other reports say that compared to the install base, the amount that is sold is actually pretty good. And then there's the curious case of Star Wars Jedi Survivor, which was current gen only, but now they've just announced they've just began development of last gen versions of that game.
Can they fix this version first before they do that?
Well, there's that too. Yeah, this current version is not even working that well still.
No.
And so they've just started the last gen version. So like, it's going to come out a year from now, and is that really going to boost their sales that much? I don't know. Max, what do you make of this story?
Is utterly baffling. The one thing in the back of my head is that was this planned from the get-go? Like, clearly they're not, if they're not meeting their sales expectations, that's one possibility. The other possibility is that maybe they wanted this to be a next-gen console that got talked about on, I don't know, like maybe a show on IGN that has the word next-gen in the title. Maybe it wanted to wind up on a lot of lists of like, oh, it's the biggest new games, it's hot new games. And it's like, that is a great-looking game. Performance could use some improvements, but I had a hard time kind of gauging, like, could this have been done on last gen? And a lot of the games we've seen that are cross-gen are really impressive. There's a little bit of a visual downgrade, but like Elden Ring, like that's a huge, massive, gorgeous game, and it looks and plays great on next new gen, whatever. But like, at this point though, it just baffles me that they would invest in going backwards. Like take that time and energy and put it towards. I mean, make a Switch version if you're gonna do that. Like if you're gonna try to figure out how to just shoehorn this massive high tech thing into like older hardware. We see people doing that kind of stuff for fun, where they're like, we got Doom running on a smart fridge or a pregnancy test, and it's like you can do that. Like I remember when we got Witcher 3 on Switch, and we were all like, how did they do that? And then we saw it in action, and we're like, oh, they got rid of a lot of the graphics, And it's cool. It's nice to see them including that, but again, like it just seems completely kind of counterintuitive. Like if you want to make a game available to everybody, maybe that's a decision that needs to get made earlier on. And I'm not a business marketing guru whiz or whatever, but like I feel like if you put up number of people who have PS4s and Xbox Ones, number of people who have the newer versions of those things, if you put those two numbers together, it's a bigger number than the one that's just on this side. So if you're going to develop a game for just the new ones, you should be like prepared for that not to do as well as if you include the big, massive. Dumb decision. I don't get it.
If it's for people who don't own a current gen console, a year from now, presumably a lot of those people will have obtained a current gen console, so that now they're no longer the audience for this last gen game. It's very confusing. Stella, did you play Star Wars Jedi Survivor?
Yeah, I am in the beginning area, like one of the beginning planets, because I have not gotten into it very much. I'm playing on PC, so I'm running into less issues, but I do know that my friend who did play it on PS5 only grinded through that story because it was really good, but like the technical issues made it just drag down the score for him, honestly. And it's one of those things of like, I agree with you both that if this was something that they intended from the start, they should have done it from the start, but now this coming after months of it having launched and still continuing to have technical issues, it's a really bad look. Like, do you care about is this really for the players or is this more for you? And that's one of those things that I'm getting from this. And it's not great because from what I understand, still on Xbox and PlayStation, it is still very unplayable in certain areas. So fix the game first and then do this.
If you can't get it running smoothly on the high-tech new hardware, like what are you doing with stuff that came out in 2013? That's baffling. Also, just the sheer nature of Star Wars, like Jedi Survivor, like it's awesome. I love that game. I weirdly did not run into too many technical issues with it on console, but like it's also like it's a story. It's a single-player adventure, which is cool, but it doesn't seem like it has a particularly long tail on it. And looking at sort of there's like a precedent for games coming out super late for consoles, and oftentimes they are like Just Dance or soccer games. And like if EA is going to be like, hey, we're targeting older stuff, like I mean, I guess the new not FIFA is already cross-gen, but it's just it's kind of doesn't seem like the right game to focus that energy on. Like I'm not saying it's a flash in the pan, but it's Star Wars is inherently episodic. Weird choice.
Yeah, also a lot of people may not like be into that particular time frame. Like I know our producer Jobert is not super into the High Republic era of things, and he wants to like move beyond that. So there's also that for people who are hardcore Star Wars fans who'll probably still try to play this and then be disappointed. But if you can't even get performance mode to run it at 30 FPS consistently, then what's the point? So.
Yeah, kind of a baffling decision. In any case, as soon as we get some more concrete details from Nintendo about its next-gen hardware, we'll be digging into all that on this very show in the future. Now, last episode, we were talking about games that are MIA that have been announced. We haven't heard from in years, but they haven't been canceled. Where are these games? And we asked the audience, what MIA game are you most looking forward to? The winning result, perhaps unsurprisingly, was Wolverine. We know that'll be the next game from Insomniac after Spider-Man 2 gets out the door. So the results were Wolverine, the Knights of the Old Republic remake, then Perfect Dark, then Hollow Knight Silksong, which I was surprised it was so far down the list because people are always crying out for where is Silksong. Way at the bottom of the list. Less than 3% of the votes was Wonder Woman. Could be bad news for that game, but who knows if that game is anything more than that logo, animated logo that we saw years ago now. Stella, you weren't on the show last week. Any of these games would you say you're particularly looking forward to hearing more about?
So earlier this year, I finished Knights of the Old Republic for the first time.
Oh,
and
cool.
I fell in love with it. I don't usually like turn-based combat, but it was one of those things where the story was so good, I was like, wait, I'm into this. And going to, oh my God, I'm blanking now, but that water planet for the first time, I was like, oh my God, imagine how gorgeous this would look in a remake. So I'm really excited. Obviously, we're not going to see anything for a while. And I know that on the Switch, the Knights of the Old Republic 2, the sequel, it was supposed to have an updated DLC pack, but they also canceled that, so that sucks. So I'm going to be playing the second one on Steam with all the mods enabled that actually restores some of the cut content. Because I played this on the Switch, actually, and it plays wonderfully on the Switch.
I would hope so. It came out like, 20 years ago.
Literally 20 years ago.
No, it's really good because I could play it in bed, and I was like, this is a problem. So, definitely excited for Knights of the Old Republic. But, again, not holding on to any like news that we might hear. So.
Yeah, I hope that game isn't just canceled outright because I would love to play a shiny new version of that incredible game. A new poll for you to vote on for next episode. When should developers leave last gen behind, in your opinion? At launch, should it be a hard break, or should there be a little bit of overlap 2 to 3 years into the next generation, or never? Make sure to vote at IGN.com the day this episode goes live. We'll share the results with you next episode. And that's going to do it for this edition of Next Gen Console Watch. Thank you to both Max and Stella. Thank you to everyone working behind the scenes in our LA and San Francisco studios to make this episode possible. My name is Damon. We'll be back next week with more Next Gen gaming hardware news. We'll see you then.